Welcome to the CMIC3 Unit 6 video, writing equations from graphs of sines and cosines. Problem number 1 on our work for today was to take this graph and write an equation where the x value is in radians. The first thing I'm going to do to accomplish that is to find the amplitude, the vertical shift, and the period, decide whether it's sine or cosine, then I'll write the equation. Amplitude is the same as we did before. In our last video, we found the amplitude from the equation. Now we're going to find that amplitude on the graph. Amplitude is the maximum value minus the minimum value. And on this paper we have -2, -4. I'm halfway in between, so that's -3. To get my amplitude, I'm going to do 7 minus -3. And we change that to 7 plus +3. If that doesn't make sense, you can either put that in your calculator or go back to the graph and just count. 7 to 6 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But amplitude goes from the midline, the center of the graph, the vertical center, the midline up to the top. When I go from maximum to minimum, I have 2 amplitudes, so I divide that by 2. I get 5. My vertical shift is how far the midline moves up. On this graph, it's fairly easy to see. With cosine, it's less easy to see. We can see that that is 2. It's moved from 0 to 2. The graph of the sine would have the midline on the x-axis, so I've moved up 2. There's a way to find that, though, if it's not as obvious. You can take the amplitude, the maximum value minus the amplitude. 7 minus 5 would give you 2. Period is the amount of, usually time, but in this case it's just how long it is from for one complete cycle. And I can do that by going from a peak to a peak. That's a complete cycle. I'm going down, I come back up, I'm ready to go down again. A cycle is when the graph starts to repeat itself. So here I'm going down, here I'm going down again. It's starting to repeat itself here. This is a complete cycle. I could do my complete cycle here. It's easier in this case, though, to do the cycle at the midline. So I'm going to look at where I'm I'm mid-height. I'm going up, reach my peak, come back down, come back up, and at this point I'm at I'm on the midline, and I'm starting to go up again. So this point is just like this point. This is a full cycle, and this is 0, this is pi. So I know a period is pi. Next thing I need to decide is whether it's sine or cosine. Sine starts at the midline and goes up. Cosine starts at the maximum point. So when you do question number 2, you'll notice it starts at the maximum point. You're going to use cosine here. But for this one, I'm going to use sine because it starts at midpoint, at the midline. So I'm using sine. And when we did our equation, we found that the number multiplied by the sine was the amplitude. So to write the equation, I'm going to write 5 times the sine. The number next to the x, the number multiplied by the x, was 2 pi divided by the period. In this case, the period is pi. Pi's cancel. I'm just left with 2. So I put the 2 next to my x, and then I add or subtract my vertical shift. If the vertical shift is positive, we add it. If the vertical shift is negative, we subtract it. Go ahead and do the rest of the paper, and let me know if you have questions.